You know that feeling, right? That incredibly frustrating gap between knowing exactly what you need to do and actually doing it. Well, today we're going to unpack that whole internal conflict, and we're going to give it a name: the Shakespeare Complex. I mean, just think about it for a second. It could be that big project you need to start, or that really tough conversation you've been putting off. You know the path, you've got the whole thing mapped out in your head. The insight is there. And yet, nothing. You're just stuck, standing at the starting line, totally and completely paralyzed. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, I promise you are so not alone. This isn't some kind of personal failure. It's a deeply, deeply human experience. Okay, so let's really get into what's happening here. We call it the knowing-doing gap. And it's so important to get this. It's not a failure of your intelligence. It's not a problem with your character. You're not lazy or confused. Nope, there's something much, much deeper going on. You see, getting that aha moment, that little flash of insight, that's actually the easy part. The real challenge, the place we all get tangled up, is in turning that knowing into actual doing. The problem isn't the insight, it's the action. So to really get a handle on this, the source material we're digging into today gives this whole experience a fantastic name. Let's talk about what it calls the Shakespeare Complex. And here it is. The Shakespeare Complex is the dramatic delay between the awareness of what must be done and the courage or freedom to do it. Just let that sink in for a second. I love that phrase, dramatic delay. It captures that internal wrestling match so perfectly. It's not just putting things off, it's this huge struggle with our own sense of courage, our own sense of freedom. And this just nails it. Think about a Shakespeare play. The audience, we almost always know what the heroes should do, right? The whole story, all the tension, comes from watching them hesitate, watching them wrestle with that choice. Well, that's us. We are both the main character and the audience in our own lives, living inside that very same dramatic delay. So if a lack of insight isn't what's holding us back, then what is? Well, to figure that out, we have to look under the hood. We've got to explore those hidden emotional forces that are really pulling the strings. This is basically a decoder ring for our own behavior. What we see on the surface, it's often just a mask for something way deeper. So that flash of anger, that might really be covering up a whole lot of sadness. The guilt we're carrying around, it could actually be fear in disguise. And when we get super busy or just go completely silent, oftentimes that's just shame and a desperate attempt to avoid. And man, to keep from feeling those tough emotions, we get so creative, don't we? We build this whole arsenal of avoidance tactics. We get lost in distractions, tell ourselves, it's not that big a deal, bury ourselves in work, or just completely shut down. These aren't just random things we do, they are full-on strategies our brain uses to keep us away from what truly scares us. But here's the catch, staying in that frozen state, it has a real cost. The source material is really clear on this. When you have all this awareness, but there's no action, it turns into its own kind of pain. Over time, that stuck feeling, it hardens. It turns into resentment, into resignation, into this belief that things are just never gonna change. So how in the world do we break the cycle? This brings us to probably the biggest idea in this whole explainer. To change our actions, we can't start with the actions themselves. No, we have to go deeper, to the very foundation they're built on. We have to look at the scaffolding of our beliefs. Think about an iceberg. Our behavior, or our lack of behavior, that's just the very tip sticking out of the water. It's the final visible result of this huge, invisible structure of beliefs that's been built up underneath the surface our entire lives. And this is how that whole structure gets put together. It starts way back with our early life beliefs, all those unexamined ideas we just sort of absorbed about how the world works. Like, what did you learn about responsibility? That you always have to put everyone else first? What about loyalty? That you should never ever rock the boat? These ideas become the scaffolding that quietly shapes every choice we make. And our actions or our inaction, they're just the final expression of that hidden inner frame. If you want to change the behavior, you got to inspect the whole structure. And this kind of reframes everything. That moment where we feel frozen, that hesitation, it's not a point of failure. It's actually our point of power. It's like a big flashing sign telling us, hey, look inward. Get curious about what's really holding you here. So ultimately, this is the big takeaway. The path forward isn't about finding someone to just give you a checklist of things to do. The real work, where the real freedom is in having the courage to actually look at what's getting in your own way, to look at those beliefs, those loyalties, those fears that are keeping you stuck. So, we'll leave you with this final, really powerful question. Instead of running away from that stuck feeling, what if we leaned into it? Could it be that by actually staying with the discomfort, by looking right at the thing we'd rather avoid, we find the exact place where real change finally begins?